Marce, thanks so much for taking the time today to jump on with us. Would really love to learn more about Photon Marine. So tell me about Photon and your company's origin story.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Marcelino Alvarez. I go by Marce for short, and I'm the founder and CEO of Photon Marine. And at Photon, we're building electric propulsion systems for commercial fleets in tourism, transportation, mariculture, and port applications. Would love to share my founding story with you all. I grew up in South Florida. I'm a lifelong boater, and I spent my summers in the Florida Keys above and below the water. And I'm fortunate that as I pursue marine decarbonization, that I can combine pretty much everything I've ever been passionate and cared about into one nice package. So Photon is a culmination, I think, of my career into one specific thing. I started out my career in advertising and got to work alongside some of the world's top design and creative minds. From there, I started my own product design studio that built mobile applications and hardware devices for a variety of innovation teams. And in late 2019, I sold that to a larger consultancy and found myself in the aftermath of that, both in the midst of the pandemic and also searching for purpose, like I think many of us did. And it was around that time that I reached out to a good friend of mine who's one of our co-founders now, whose background is fisheries nonprofits. And we were just catching up one day talking about the problems that he faced in the fishing community and what the role of technology could be in solving some of those problems. And one thing led to another, and we started talking about electric outboard motors. I was like, that's a really interesting problem. Why has nobody solved that yet? And we kind of, went down this rabbit hole of like, well, maybe we could just buy some electric motors and send them to these places around the world where he was doing some work. And it turns out that there wasn't anything that was high power enough or that was really targeted towards the needs of commercial fleets. And so I was like, well, how hard could it be to build an outboard motor? And reached out to some friends that I knew in the community, and I was like, who do we know that can build an electric outboard motor? And that's how we got connected to our CTO, Nick Sheps, whose background is motorcycle, EV motorcycle design and engineering. And so we met, we kind of hit it off, and he's like, well, you got to find a good market segment to really kind of push this electrification. And so started doing a lot of research, attended a number of electrification conferences, and really kind of honed in on the case studies of school bus fleet electrification and municipal bus fleet electrification. We're like, what if that's our playbook, right? What if rather than looking at commercial fishers or even like search and rescue applications, what if we looked at things whose duty cycle looked like a bus? And we just kind of made a list, from water taxis to port applications to marine enforcement to tourism applications. And, by the end of this, we had like a list of like a dozen different applications. We're like, this is probably a really good beachhead for us, knowing that at some point the battery tech is going to get better. You'll be able to go further and further. But this will allow us to push for a higher horsepower motor. So the founding team hit it off, and we kind of all quit our day jobs in January of 2022, and have been building and testing electric outboard motors ever since.
That's amazing. I love how you're able to take everybody's specialties and blend it all together and finding something that really works and addresses the market. Exactly where the market's at. Electric vehicles are on the top of everybody's mind right now. So bringing it to the waterways just makes absolute sense. I'm curious too. So when we started working together, what was keeping you up at night that led you to come over to coLAB and begin working with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that encouraged us to reach out to coLAB was, we really wanted to expand our universe of potential customer targets beyond people that we had direct connections into, as well as beyond people that were maybe like a referral away. And I think the reason for this, was severalfold. I mean, we were in the midst of a fundraise and wanted to establish, product market fit and demand for the technology that we're building. We also wanted to leverage some of the speaking opportunities that we had been granted. So we were speaking at a number of leading workboat conferences and technology conferences, and wanted to leverage that for targeted outreach. And we also wanted to add a layer of sophistication to our outreach. I think we recognized that the intro requests, through people that were in our networks, as well as, direct outreach wasn't really a scalable proposition. And so we wanted to build a little bit more intelligence and a systemized process for how we targeted those new customers. And so we connected with coLAB and got to learn a bit more about the process and the approach. We shared information for, how we were positioning ourselves, some of the opportunities that were ahead of us. And really built a strategy that allowed us to target the different sectors and even like some of the subsectors within our industry to reach out to potential customers. And we had a really great, success rate in terms of not just the types of responses that we received, but the caliber of the industries and organizations did respond to our outreach. So was really impressed with the collaborative process, how we A/B tested different things, and also certainly the results. We're in active conversations with a number of those and some really key segments for us that we continue to cultivate this day.
I want to come back to that success rate in just a minute, but can we deep dive a little bit? Tell me a little bit more about some of the ways that you went about solving these challenges when we were working together.
Sure. So to put it specifically, one of the big target events for us last year, and it will be again this year, is the New Orleans Workboat Show. It's the largest workboat show in the country that brings together industry sectors, including the U.S. federal government, other federal governments, municipalities, ports, utility companies, and pretty much any commercial operator who's seeking to buy a new vessel shows up to this show. We had a speaking opportunity. We were giving the opening talk at that show alongside another established company that had an electric tug, and so we wanted to both leverage the fact that we were on stage, but also that we knew that we had some really esteemed panelists that were alongside us that we could engage with conversations. And so we worked to generate lists of individuals in ports, individuals in construction, some of our potential channel partners too. And so while that's not necessarily tied directly to a sale, but we knew that the show also attracts a number of boat builders, which for us are an important channel partner, as well as other suppliers. And so we worked with the coLAB team to generate outbound lists across those sectors. We tailored a customized outreach message to each of them. We know that folks are busy, and so we created a multi-segment campaign to reach those individuals, and had a really great success rate in terms of conversations, leveraging people that showed up to our talk because they had heard about us from the email, to a boat builder that we're engaged with right now that also heard about us because we were outreaching via email in advance of the show, and continue to work with them to this day. So for us it was working really closely with the coLAB team to provide the context and the background on the industry segments that we're targeting, and then go through some of those early lists to identify like this is a good target, this is not a good target, and then identifying people within those organizations that we wanted to connect with and meet while we're at the show.
So it sounds like this was a lot of the framework that really set it up for the successes that you're seeing right now. What have some of those impacts been? I know you just mentioned one, but if you want to expand on that, or have you been seeing any others?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk about the boat builder one first, and then go from there. So, there's a boat builder that we had met out there that was really exciting for us because we wanted to really leverage energy efficient hull designs for electrification, and their technology is a catamaran that has a very specific shape that can accommodate a lot of batteries. And so we connected with them. We talked, on the last day of the show, and made a commitment to continue conversations beyond that. So we've, since been out on their vessels at a different show in Florida. We have applied for a number of grants together, and then we are soliciting a couple of the customers that are in their pipeline as well as ours. Another one that actually came through a coLAB outreach to actually use their hull design for a customer that responded to via coLAB. So I would say that's probably the one of the pinnacle ones because I think it touched both the customer side as well as the channel partner side. But we also had two different responses back to two very major ports in the U.S. that we had reached out to in advance of the show. And while we weren't able to connect at that show, we're able to set up meetings after the show with both of those organizations. And we've been able to loop them into some of our other programs that we have with some of the grants that we're getting, as well as some of the opportunities to test out our electric vessels in the coming years. And so we're engaged with both of those ports right now to either get them in on this one grant program that we're part of, or access to our technology via sea trial in pursuit of purchase order later this year. So both those conversations are still working their way through the system. I've since bumped into one of those ports at a couple of other conferences, and we've engaged in person as well and have had follow-up conversations since. So I would say both are very active conversations that, as we kind of move along our product development process that we're in right now, would be really good targets for us as a potential early customer.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. And of course, with startups, right, things are ever changing. You're going with the ebbs and flows of the success that you're seeing. I'm curious if there were any significant milestones or achievements that you've seen this year that might be shaping your vision for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, obviously, technology is everything for us. And so we've been testing the next generation of our electric outboard motor. That is a lower profile outboard motor. It weighs a lot less. It has a much simpler maintenance program in comparison to traditional ICE outboards, and even compared to some of the existing electric outboards that are out there. And so really the key milestone has been validating that design, validating the concept, and then continuing to evolve it. And so our goal is to bring the new motor to New Orleans this year at the Workboat Show. And so building upon the successes from last year, we're actually going to have two panels at the Workboat Show this year. One that is more industry focused around port electrification, and a second one that's a technical deep dive as well that will offer specification type buyers to really understand the dynamics of an electric propulsion system. The other thing that we hope to be able to have at the Workboat Show this year, still in talks, is actually having a boat in the water at the show, which it's one of those things that you would expect all boat shows to have boats in the water, but this one does not. And so we're hoping to have one of our workboats in the water for demonstration purposes as part of the event. So really it's building upon the early successes from late last year and carrying those into this year with an intent of converting interest in our technology into purchase orders this year.
So you're always keeping your eyes on the future, right? And in the electrification space, you have to be. Are there any sort of emerging trends or technologies in the industry that you think are going to have a big impact on the business over the next 2 to 3 years? And if so, how are you preparing for it?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of factors that are really driving electrification. And some of those are technology, but I also think that there's a regulatory and incentive stack as well that is encouraging this transition. And so, in the U.S. side, the Inflation Reduction Act included quite a bit of federal funding for electrification programs that were really geared towards, looking at entire ports operations and electrifying various elements from energy generation to mobility to obviously electric vessels. And so for us, those are game changer programs because they allow us to create little, ecosystems where we can go into and not just, offer electric workboats or electric vessels, but really build an electrification, portfolio. So we've been able to apply for some of those. We'll hear back this year. And there's a number of states that actually have matching programs for those types of funds that we've been able to also apply for, which we'll also hear back from this year. That really could be, a game changer for us in terms of not just setting us up for scale, but really helping our partners demonstrate the viability of electric propulsion while reducing some of the upfront risk. Who knows what will happen next year and if those types of programs will be around. But I will say that, our neighbors to the north in Canada have a number of awesome programs as well that they've been incorporating. We've recently been awarded a grant from Canada's Ocean Supercluster to build out a consortium of electric vessel expertise. And so leveraging some of those programs, again, to reduce some of the early risk with trying a new technology or even just developing the infrastructure, which in some cases is needed. So programs like that I think are a vital part to the technology ecosystem. Certainly not required, but they're an accelerant. They help out. On the regulatory side, I think you are starting to see more pressures on commercial operators to decarbonize, either through sort of self-regulation type programs where, companies make ESG commitments and say, hey, we're going to decarbonize, our fleets by X percentage by X year. As well as certain governments are limiting the amount of ICE motors that can operate in certain types of marine sanctuaries or protected waters. And again, those are accelerants. They're not needed to transition, a fleet to electric, but they certainly help out. And so I think for us, in terms of a trend, it'll be to really kind of keep an eye on where some of the, those programs and those incentives manifest themselves. And use those as ways to target customers in a particular geography. How might we reach, out to a customer in California who's facing regulatory pressures to decarbonize? And how do we reach them with a message that acknowledges, some of the challenges with those pressures, as well as the opportunity that's in front of them? And I think for us, it's a combination of outreach and then following through with an opportunity to get people on the water. So for us, I think that stack is probably, among the trends, more on the policy side. On the tech side, there's always new battery technology that's coming out that promises, indefinite range and all sorts of things. And I think, as our CTO likes to point out, until some of that battery tech has been, brought to scale in an automotive environment, you're really not going to see it, move into marine. Marine's a lot more risk averse than the automotive side. But it's always keen to keep an eye out on new technology, people that figure out different ways to pick up a few percentage points of efficiency. And so for us, as part of our program, we're always, doing research and development on some of those technologies to determine their viability and potential success rate within marine. And so that could be battery, that could be, a new type of propeller, it could be a new type of hull form, or, a way to reduce the drag of a hull through, semi-foils or full foils. There are all sorts of things that really ladder up to picking up percentage points of efficiencies in our system, and that's generally where our R&D effort is looking at, both from a design perspective as well as an integration of other tech.
Very excited to see what the future continues to look like and how Photon Marine impacts that. Last question that we have for you is a loop that we like to do, where the founder that we spoke with beforehand left you a question, and then we'll have you leave a question for the person that we'll be speaking to next. The question was left from Leo from Wolomi. Question being, looking back at your journey, what's one crucial piece of advice that you would give to yourself your first year as being a founder?
So this isn't my first startup, so I would have to kind of cycle back to my previous company that I started, which was Uncork Studios as a product design studio. And so I think looking back on my career, and that was a consultancy. So what advice would I give myself then? There was a book that I read towards the end of my time on the consultancy treadmill called Managing the Professional Services Firm. It was written a long time ago by this guy, David Maister, and it's not an exciting read, but it's a very useful read if you're running a product design studio or consultancy or anything with, in the services industry. And I would say that I certainly wish that I would have read that book at the beginning of my journey on the consultancy stack, only because, I think there are any flavor of, consultancies and everyone tries to, put a unique spin on it. But that book really broke it apart into the components of running a services-based business in a way that I don't think I'd ever seen put together in a single document. He wrote other books too. Another one was Strategy and the Fat Smoker, which was, took a very pointed view on any strategy that is not your long-term strategy that you're not putting into place today is an excuse.
I love that. We'll appreciate your answers. What question would you like to leave for the next person that we speak with?
So often, like in running a company or building a product, there's this idea of work-life balance that I think gets thrown out there, and I think, truthfully, founders have this ability to either ignore that balance or really push the idea of balance to the limit by over subscribing both, and so. And there's risk to that, right? I think, taking care of your mental and physical health is part of this journey, as important as maintaining your books or making good hires and everything else. Because if as a founder or an executive of a company, you're not in a good state, well, then everyone suffers from that. And so the question I would have for the subsequent interview is, what steps are you taking to ensure that you're balancing work, life, the personal side with the professional side, and what changes could you make to keep that in balance over the next leg of your journey?
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Marce. Really appreciate your time and very excited to watch the continued success for Photon Marine.
Thank you. Really appreciate all you do.